Greetings. My name's Tim Forsman, and I thought that I would give a quick update about our most recent field visit to Little Muck Shelter in the Mapungubwe National Park. We visited the site in May 2021 and extended our excavations from our previous work in the shelter. And we were able to find some really exciting things, some things that took us a bit by surprise. And we're excited to continue this work because of some of these findings that we've made in this most recent field season. The research that we're doing is funded by the National Research Foundation. We're very grateful to them for all of their support, as well as the Paleontological Scientific Trust that supports several of the students working on this project, and the University of Pretoria. And we're also grateful to the South African National Parks and the Mapungubwe National Park for all of the support they've provided. This work falls under the Sociospatial Networks in Southern Africa project and under the broader banner of the Hunter-Gatherer Archaeological Research Project. So before I get into our excavations and our findings, I thought let me quickly give you a recap about where the site is and what we're focusing on. So the site is situated in the Middle Limpopo Valley. This is a part of northern South Africa, eastern Botswana and southern Zimbabwe that we do our research in. We're focusing on the South African side. But this landscape is very connected to other archaeological landscapes around the central Southern African region, including places like Tutswa, Kaitsa, Mapela Hill, Great Zimbabwe, as well as those in South Africa like Mapungubwe and Tulamela. If we zoom into this grey block, we find that there's a range of sites in this area. This includes farmer settlements. Some of these are quite significant, like Mapungubwe, K2, Schroeder, Liokwe Hill, and others on this map are mixed identity sites, those being ones that include farmer identities as well as foragers. Euphorbia Corp is an example. But what we're really interested in are the forager sites, the black dots here. And the site we're focusing on is Little Muck Shelter. As you can see, it's surrounded by other hunter-gatherer occupied sites, but for now our interest is this shelter in particular. Little Muck is situated about 1.5 kilometers from Liokwe Hill. Liokwe Hill is a large Iron Age settlement that was occupied by farmer communities from at least 8900. Part of the reason why Little Muck was initially excavated was in order to investigate the way that those living at Little Muck Shelter, hunter-gatherers, interacted with those living at a place like Liokwe Hill. And a very interesting sequence was uncovered. In particular, strong evidence for intensive craft production and trade with farmer groups. And this was something that interested us as a project interested in how hunter-gatherers interacted with farmer people, but more so, how hunter-gatherers participated in these broader social networks occurring on this landscape, and specifically the development of state-level society at Mapungubwe. So we wanted to re-excavate the site in order to get to radiocarbon dated. It hadn't been absolutely dated yet, and also to establish, or to retrieve rather, an assemblage that we could then analyze and study alongside the dates that we obtained. The shelter is to the right over here. You can see the koppie outline, and then there's the recess, which is a rock, bedrock that's lifted off the ground, and there's no deposit there, and it goes back deep into the shelter. But behind that dashed line, the drip line, is the sheltered area, and out front you can see where it says exposed bedrock. There's a series of engravings on the rock there, which includes grooves, cupules, gaming boards, and hollows. Here's a close-up of the actual shelter. So you can see again the drip line. So anything basically to the right of the drip line in this map is protected, say if it was raining, for example. So we focusing our excavations inside the shelter. You can see the dark grey blocks are our excavations, our active work. And that includes a portion deep inside the shelter where we've excavated about 5 squares now. We haven't completed all of these excavations. It is ongoing work. And then to the east of the site, you can see that there's 3 excavations. One of them is complete, and almost the second one is complete, and one is entirely ongoing. What took us by surprise when we arrived on site in May was the incredible amount of grass that had grown across the front section of the shelter, so outside the shelter. Obviously, great rainfall led to excellent growth in the region. It's obviously, as you can see, quite dry, but it's quite thick and made it a little bit more challenging to move around site, and also provided us with an interesting perspective on the transformation that the site undergoes throughout the annual cycle. So this was something we had to work with while we were on site. And as you can see, closer to the shelter, we had some larger bushes, and We had to clear a lot of this. Obviously, we're very careful with clearing because the roots penetrate the ground and we don't want to disturb any of the deposits. Here's my brilliant field team. This is day one, actually, us getting ready for site. So to give you a different perspective of that stand of grass that grew over the last season, this is a photograph from September 2020 when we did a quick inspection of the site. And here's more or less from the same perspective a photograph of the site now in May 2021. So as you can see, there is quite a lot of growth that took place. And this, like I say, we had to deal with this carefully. Again, we don't want to disturb the deposit whatsoever. So it's very careful removing, and then we excavate down. If there is growth within our excavation areas, we excavate down through the root layer rather than pulling them out to ensure that we don't disturb the deposit further. For this field season, we decided to focus our attention in the eastern section of the site. So it's where we had those 3 squares in the site map. The reason for that is where you can see Shantae kneeling on the right-hand side. There, she just stood up. There she is. We had excavated to her right, between her and where I am at the back there in the blue shirt. We had excavated that square down to bedrock. So we were interested, and we had found some really fantastic results, and we had started the square that I'm excavating with SK and Courtney. And we wanted to continue that square and then expand in this area because of the really great finds that we were making here. This included a range of artifacts, ceramics, beads, and evidence for craft production, which we're particularly interested in. Here are some of those finds that we're a bit excited about. The top left is a piece of pottery in context. When we first started uncovering it, we got really excited. And there was some dancing on site, I won't lie. I'm glad no one was filming. I'm a terrible dancer. But every now and then I do my best. So we thought this was perhaps Bombarta when we first started exposing it. However, that was exciting because it's the earliest known ceramic facies here in Southern Africa. We were in the layers at the site that we thought was perhaps about the mid-first millennium to the early first millennium. So it kind of fitted. But our excitement was a little bit short-lived. We then started to doubt ourselves, and rightly so. But we then, it was later confirmed with discussions with another archaeologist that this is Happy Rest ceramic, and this is still within our time frame. It's mid-first millennium AD, so we weren't far off, and that's exciting. It confirms that at least what we were expecting as we were excavating down, based on some of the artifacts that were coming out, everything seems to be in order. So, for example, the pot to the bottom left there below it, this is a Leopard's Copy period ceramic shard, and that was above this Happy Rest pottery shard by some measure. And that's good for us because it indicates, as I said, that things are in order. And it's what we expected based on the work from Simon Hall and Ben Smith previously at the site, and from our excavations in 2020 as well. The top right image is a very fragmented tooth. It's particularly large. I mean, if you imagine, you can see obviously my hand is there for scale, but if you imagine the size of a hand and then holding that tooth, you're looking at something that's probably about 4.5 centimeters in length. Its root system is quite large, although it's broken. And the conservationist that was with us on site, our ranger, he felt this was an elephant tooth. He was quite convinced, actually. If it is an elephant tooth, which is something we'll confirm in the coming weeks or months, it's very exciting to have an elephant tooth in the shelter. If you do hunt an elephant, it's obviously quite a large animal. It's not something that you pick up and carry back to the site with you. And if you do pick it up and carry back to the site, that's pretty impressive. But generally what we find with elephant and large animals like it, butchery occurs at the site of hunting, and parts of it are brought back to site, not all of it. So the fact that there's a tooth here, it may relate to hunting practices, it may relate to foraging practices, it may relate to other issues we haven't really considered yet, which we will in time once we've confirmed whether or not it is in fact an elephant tooth. But it is something that we'll definitely investigate further, should it be the case. The image in the middle on the bottom row, is something we still have to confirm, but it was found in close association with the elephant tooth. And we have some ideas, but when we are able to confirm what we think, whether we're right or wrong, we'll talk about it. But for now, we're going to keep it a bit quiet. But if you have a look, what's exciting about it, it's a very dense material, quite dark, and you can see it has fracture lines moving longitudinally. But if you have a look at my thumb and index finger, again, if you take that for my hand for scale, you can see it's a fairly large piece, not massive or anything like that, but it's not a small item. If you have a look at my thumb and index finger and draw a line between the two, and then above that line, if you look at the piece, you'll notice that it seems to be shaved off. And it does look like there's some kind of manufacturing or processing that's occurred where this has been cut down or shaved or sliced along that upper portion in this image of this particular item. And that's something we will obviously look at in closer detail. The piece to the bottom right is just an absolutely beautiful stone tool. It's on a lovely chalcedony. You can see there's a lovely pattern in the middle, which if we duplicated it would look like a heart, which is why we took the picture. There's reworking along the edges of this piece, so this is a formal artifact, and this is a lot of what we're going to be looking at are these types of stone tools, looking at the representation of different types of tools versus others, and try and understand what type of crafts were being produced at the site. Moreover, we have a new MA student who's joined us, and he's going to be looking at the stone or lithic sequence from the site. So from top to bottom, how does the assemblage change? What is it represented by? What does it include? And what are these preference patterns, or what are the types of artifacts that are more frequent than others? I feel obliged to mention this in honor of one of the students who attended the fieldwork. He came up with his bakkie, told me only the day before we left that it was a 2x4, which I thought would be fun. And then we encountered this horrible patch of sand. I knew about it, but it was particularly bad, being dry now. And I think he'd really appreciate the fact that I mentioned how many times he got stuck in the sand. On day one, I would like to add that I did provide him with information on how to drive through the sand without getting stuck. He didn't listen to me, and on the second last day, he came and was very excited that he was able to get through the sand without getting stuck. And when he described to me how, I said to him, but that's what I told you on day one. So the lesson was learnt. The sand defeated us on a few occasions, but ultimately we were able to successfully get through it in quick enough time to still have a good field season on site. One of the other exciting developments that took place was the beginning of the rock art work that we're doing. So here photographed is Alice Mullen, who's doing her PhD with us at the University of Pretoria and on this project. And she's going to be looking at the rock art record around the Middle Limpopo Valley and including the Soutpansberg. So she came up to excavate with us, and we did a full inventory of the rock art at Little Muck Shelter. On the right-hand side, you can see just one photograph of that. There's quite a number of images in the site, and it's very exciting. Unfortunately, a lot of the art is quite faded, and that's going to make it a little bit of a challenge to properly understand. However, fortunately, we have available to us a number of techniques that we can use to enhance the imagery and kind of replicate it in more vibrant colors, more true to form colors. Those faded images, the faded paints, we can bring that out and see it in far better detail. This program is called D-Stretch, and it's something that we're going to be running through all of the sites that we work on to try and better understand the images, because you get to see it a lot clearer. So Alice began her work at Little Muck Shelter. Obviously, that we work at the shelter, it's a great opportunity for us to do a more well-rounded study, excavate in the ground, understand the rock art on the wall in great detail. So this is going to give us a really good perspective of what's going on at the site, and it's something that we will hopefully be working on in the coming months in terms of putting something out there in the published media regarding the rock art sequence at this particular site. We're also very excited to once again have a range of community engagement programs that we ran at the shelters. We had 2 visits. We normally do a quick tourism trip when we arrive, where people come and join us for a visit to this particular site. This is Kawaka Shelter on the farm Machete. We're very fortunate that this is where we base ourselves. Our gracious hosts Duncan and Hazel McWhirter allow us to stay here. And this recent trip we camped in the campsite near to the site, otherwise we stay in the farmhouse. It's an absolutely wonderful place to stay. And we take groups to the rock art site and we show them the art and talk a bit about our research as well. This particular group, however, was a bit different. This was a school group of youngsters who are being homeschooled in the area, who came to the site with their parents, and we had a range of different activities, including identifying certain images on the rock face, redrawing some of the images, answering a few questions, finding some artifacts on the floor, which we then discussed in detail. So it was a really great interactive experience at the site. And these are the kinds of things that we get really excited about as well in the HARP team, is engaging with people, is getting people out to see some archaeology, chatting to them about the history of the area, in many ways dispelling some of the myths associated with archaeology, the practice of archaeology, but also these archaeological sequences. And it's a very fulfilling thing for us. We hope, obviously, through this, that the people we interact with enjoy these kinds of interactions, enjoy learning a bit more about the archaeology of these landscapes that they may not know a lot about until we meet with them. So this particular group was really exciting. It was a really great day out. We had a lot of fun showing the youngsters the site, the different images, chatting about archaeology, and then obviously being able to interact with all the parents that were there as well, who are landowners in the area who often have archaeology on the properties that they own or manage. And so it's a really important part of our process as well. So something else we initiated after this field season was the bad band photo album covers. So we decided, rather than just taking your stock standard team photo that we always take, all line up and try and look a bit dirty, that you've been excavating, but also look a bit good. We thought, okay, let's rather go for the bad band photo album cover, and this is what we'll do each year. So this was the first one, named after the title is In the Hyena's Den. We had a hyena come and live inside the shelter when we were working in it. There's a deep recess to the east of our shelter, but literally just right there. You look at it while you're excavating. Very deep recess, very narrow, and you can only go so far in. And on one of the days, we found blood trail leading into the shelter and tracks, and we sort of investigated slightly, very carefully with a torch, and we saw something moving in the deep part of the recess. Later in the day, we kept an eye out. We built a little barrier, so if this creature were to come out, it wouldn't, access the site. It would be directed away from us. Health and safety, top priority. And later in the afternoon, inspecting it once again, we confirmed that it was definitely a hyena. We thought it would disappear over the course of the night. It didn't. So that led us to wonder whether the blood was an injury, which we weren't convinced about, or if if it was a female that was pregnant and it was, looking to give birth. We're not sure. It was very relaxed. I'd say we became close friends during that process. So we decided to name our album cover after the Hyena's Den. So this will be an ongoing tradition. Each year, each season we go up there, we will definitely have new album covers, as lame and corny as this one, or worse. This year we're going to have another 3 album covers, I think, but we're going up in late July for our next field season. And we have a changeover of field team in the middle of the trip. So we have a 2-week trip, and after a week, some members are leaving and new members are coming. So we'll have to have a volume 1 and volume 2 for the next field season. But yes, we'll definitely continue that. If you have ideas and suggestions as how to make this cornier, please do not hesitate to leave a comment or contact me. As usual, I'd just like to acknowledge the incredible efforts of my team. It's such a privilege to be able to go to the field in this part of the world, and to be able to do that with a strong field team that are supportive, that are positive, that are willing to learn, to develop, to grow, that assist each other, that help each other out, that look after each other in the field and care for one another, and are incredibly interested in the archaeology that we're doing. Now, yes, it's not everyone's field, but ultimately, while we joke with each other, we all find this really fascinating. So to the field team that came up was the honors group with a few extras, and it was really brilliant having them there. We did great work. We covered a lot of ground, or went through a lot of ground, I should say, and I think a lot of lessons were learned in terms of the group's development in archaeology. That was part of this field season, was practical experience for this crowd, and it was a really enjoyable trip. Sitting around the campfires in the evenings in our tented camp and chatting and learning about each other, and we've really, this HARP team that we've slowly growing and creating is becoming a really tight unit, and it's an incredible honor to work with a lot of these students and young people, and it's a privilege. And I'm looking forward to the next field season with them, and I hope that some of the viewers, some of the people in the area who are watching this will be able to visit us with the July trip, because of the pandemic and this COVID wave we're currently in. It may not be possible to limit interactions. There'll be a group of us. We'll all be tested before we go to make sure that we're all negative. But we obviously don't want to interact and spread the virus should we have it, or should someone else introduce the virus into our group. So Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast at the moment. But we will overcome this, obviously, in time. And we do hope that many people come and join us and see what we're doing in the field and interact with us as we're doing our research. We look forward to meeting you, chatting with you, and we look forward to moving some earth again. Thanks.